This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on minimum support price and agriculture reforms for better market access. The participants are K.S. Sachidanand Murthy, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastava, journalist.
The government recently passed 3 farm bills in the recently concluded session of the parliament, and this also received the presidential assent, and now these are laws. If I can talk about these 3 bills when they were presented in the parliament, these were the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill 2020, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Bills 2020, and the last was the Essential Commodities Amendment Act connected to both of these farm bills. Mr. Murthy, a lot of political messaging, a lot of government messaging, a lot of debate, protest by the opposition, and also political posturing. Going one by one, the first part, the government, when it brought these bills to the parliament in the recent session, and when it talked about the kind of measures undertaken by it for bringing this particular 3 bills, 2 especially, one essential commodity is also aligned with them. So the government says that this is very important when it comes to doubling the income of the farmers. This is very important for empowering the farmers, taking out the middleman from the agriculture produce as such. But at the same time, the opposition's concern or the political party's concern is that the farmers are going to suffer. This will not lead to a better life for them or a better income for them, and this will increase a lot of trouble for them. So the kind of political debate, posturing, and the kind of messaging that the government did, what are these bills and how do you see this entire thing panning out?
Yeah, since the first wave of economic reforms by the P.V. Narasimha Rao Manmohan Singh government in 1991, a debate has always been there about agricultural reforms. Because from the British era, we have had laws which were controlling the agriculture sector very strongly, both to ensure that the state got its revenues and also the small farmers got protected. There were land reforms laws, or the 1936 law in Punjab, which got later extended to rest of the country to establish agriculture marketing committees or mandis. Then in the 1960s, the government came up with the minimum support price for public procurement of food grains so that the PDS could be strengthened. And then the Essential Commodities Act was brought in so that to eliminate black marketing and hoarding of food grains. So these were all the laws which had come in those times. And this, what we could call is the agricultural legal architecture of the 20th century. That's what the Prime Minister in his speech in Himachal Pradesh also yesterday said. These all belong to the previous century. The mindset of his critics was also of the previous century. But now the country has advanced, the farmers' needs have grown, and that's why these changes have been thought about. Because now, earlier, the farmers could sell their produce within a radius of 50 to 75 kilometers at the most. But today, with improvement in logistics, storage, preservation, and the spread of internet, a farmer sitting in Punjab can sell his produce to somebody in Bombay, or vice versa, onion producer in Maharashtra can sell it to somebody in Bengal. So the government has been arguing that these reforms were needed, and the government has been saying that they were nudging the state governments in this direction. If you remember, some years ago, Bihar had abolished the Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee Act itself, and Kerala does not have Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee. So the government has been pushing for this. So since the states were not taking the initiative on their own, and also now the government says that there has to be uniformity across the country so that the benefit to farmers living in one state can be derived similarly by farmers living in other states. That's why this is one nation, one market concept. These laws were brought in. Now, the one is under the concurrent list of the Constitution on marketing of foodstuffs, that is what is consumed as food or what is used to make food. Both the central and state governments have the power to regulate it. So on that basis, the government brought these laws. And also the Essential Commodities Act was brought in so that anybody keeping food grains above a certain prescribed limit, they could be prosecuted. But now in this era of surplus production, the need for long-term and huge storage by those who are dealing with food grains, so that also needed amendment. That's why these 3 amendments were brought in by the government. 3 new laws have been made in that way. And these came first in the form of ordinances, which were announced as part of the 20 lakh crore stimulus to take on the economic slowdown and the COVID impact. Then these ordinances have been converted into laws by Parliament.
I was listening to the Union Information Broadcasting and the Environment Minister, Mr. Javadekar, today. He was speaking in Goa, Mr. Murthy, and he says that the opposition parties which are opposing the newly enacted farm bill are now acting as middlemen for middlemen. And also, since these bills were introduced in the Parliament, the opposition's main plank has been that this will take away the MSP. As you said, it was introduced in 1960s, and that the government's procurement will go away. Now, the government at the same time has been saying that these two things are not being tinkered with, absolutely sacrosanct, and that these bills are going to be watershed, historic, and kind of reforms for the agriculture sector.
The Information Broadcasting Minister has been continuously giving this message, that also reiterating what the Prime Minister has said, that these are very, very historic, much needed reforms which will help the farmers. So the issue has come up is that government was doing the messaging before the bill. Naturally, it should have anticipated some of these criticisms, and it should have gone for a more stronger education of the farmers and others on the benefits that will accrue out. Because now the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So now how the system will work in its first year, when farmers are at liberty to sell their produce beyond the agriculture produce marketing committees or the prevalent mandis in Punjab and Haryana, that is a challenge. And the government has rightly said that the minimum support price will continue. The procurement levels will not be reduced by the Food Corporation of India, because the procurement by Food Corporation of India alone sustains the public distribution in this country, on which a big majority of the population are dependent upon. Now, how much of risk farmers can take, how much of investment can come from the private sector so that they can offer better competitive prices. And one of the bills also provides for stability in prices, and there is a bureaucratic mechanism which has been brought in to ensure that farmers are not cheated by their products anywhere in the country. And now the whole new regulatory system, the new trading system has to get established, and that will take a year or so. We have to wait for that to see the efficacy, and then whatever issues come up, like we had in GST, one nation, one tax, issues have come up and they are getting addressed by a GST council. So similarly, implementation of these far-reaching reforms has to be strictly monitored at all levels by the government and other agencies involved.
Amidst this views and counter views of both the government and the opposition, Murthy Saab, we also seeing that only today the Congress is leading a tractor rally in Punjab. States like Punjab and Haryana, we have seen a lot of protests, not so much in other states. But for the benefit of our listeners, what exactly can be the scheme? Like, can the opposition parties or the opposition ruled state not allow these farm laws to be implemented? Can they approach the legal forum or the Supreme Court for that matter?
There are two ways of protesting, and one is, of course, having the street protest which the Congress has planned. As noted, they are planning a tractor rally in the Congress-ruled state of Punjab, whereas the BJP-dominant state of Haryana has said it will not allow any rally by the Congress party. So there are issues, and also one is, of course, the street protest, how much of enthusiasm will be there. Like, there are states where there have been no protest because farmers are selling their produce outside the marketing committees. And the turnover of the marketing committees in these states is far less. So that way, the big procurement states like Punjab and Haryana, where the mandis system has been in existence for nearly 80 years, so they are the ones where the protest is intensive. But yes, the legal challenge is there. Already some MPs have moved petitions in the Supreme Court. The Chief Minister of Punjab has been saying that he will also move the Supreme Court, and the Congress President Sonia Gandhi has asked the Congress-ruled 4 states to enact their own laws. But then, as you know, in the Constitution, this subject comes under the concurrent list. In the concurrent list, it says that both the central and state governments can pass legislation to control the trade in foodstuffs. Foodstuffs means whatever articles are consumed as food or used for making food. So food grains, edible oils, fruits, vegetables and all that come in that category of foodstuffs. But also the constitution says wherever there is a central law, it will override a state law. So if Congress ruled governments pass a law to nullify the effect of the central government, or as Punjab says they will declare the entire state as a mandi, not just designated areas. Now that means that they are saying that instead of farmers selling their goods within the jurisdiction of a single mandi, they can sell it across the state. But all these will have to go through the constitutional test before the Supreme Court. And that is where the central government is very confident that we have passed this law after looking at the powers of the central government and how it can be done, and that we will robustly defend the decision to bring these laws. The central government is confident that the Supreme Court will not allow any state to derail this process.
The entire talk about the market access for the farmers, Murthy Sahab, we as a layman's understanding, everyone, and we have heard it so many times, that while at the time when almost 60-65% of the country's population is somewhere involved directly, indirectly in the farming sector, the farmer is always at a loss. We have always heard that in urban centers, something that will price 20 rupees a kilo, the farmer may fetch rupee 1 or 2 rupees a kilo. So this entire debate of a middleman being there in the center of the farm produce and the procurement and erasing that particular level. So a lot of debate is also on that the government saying that the middleman goes away, while the opposition, and there are, as the Prime Minister himself has said, that there are vested interests for these middlemen, and that is why this is being opposed. So this entire gamut of farm produce, the middleman and the farmer not getting his due. I think that is the most important thing that probably even at people, everyone needs to understand.
One way, bring in any number of laws which will say, okay, we'll eliminate middlemen, we'll see that, from the farm to the table, the price will not be inflated or affected. These idealistic arguments are there. Similar idealism is there behind these changes also, which also will unlock investment into agriculture and food processing sectors. But my practical feeling is the farmer will get benefit, will get a higher price, better price, only if the demand goes up. The per capita consumption of food articles in this country has to go up. So that is the only way the farmer can benefit. Also, too many mouths to feed for farmers in their families. But only when there is a huge demand in urban sector, also the export sector, then the farmers will get far, far better price than whatever the minimum support price is fixed by the government. But this is a step in that direction. So how well this was implemented, because though it's a central law, it needs complete support of state governments, local bodies, the Jilla Panchayats, as well as the farmers themselves to make it work.
We see in this country the elections keep happening, whether it is an assembly poll or some other polls. We are very soon going to be having polls in Bihar, next year in West Bengal and few others. A lot of farmer politicians, they call themselves that they come from families who have farming as their main profession. So the kind of politics that we are seeing in different states, different voices, I will also take you to that part where one of the important constituents of the present government, the Shiromani Akali Dal, one of the cabinet ministers they had, she resigned. So what kind of political debate is this generating?
Right, for a long time, issues affecting farmers have been very, very strong weapons for political arguments and disagreements also. And the former Prime Minister Charan Singh, he took up the issue of farmers. Then he said there are two countries, India and Bharat, and India is cheating Bharat. So that became his main mantra. But obviously now for Shiromani Akali Dal, it is being for the same farmers vote. There is a competition by Amrinder Singh, and the elections are just a year and a half away. So they had to take this stand. So this is a sensitive subject because bulk of our MPs think they are representing farmers. This is an issue where the government has been very bold, saying that, okay, we are doing it, we have no malafide in this, we think this will benefit the farmers better than the old laws in force. So this is a very, very bold initiative which can be risky, as it has proved that the partner in NDA has left the NDA. So, but then still, if you don't take risk, you can't change things. But now, similar attention has to be paid by the government to ensure that the implementation is successful. There are no losses to farmers in this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murthy, for talking to us.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on minimum support price and agriculture reforms for better market access. The participants were K.S. Sachidanand Murthy, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastava, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.